Welcome back, my superposition seminar attendees. I'm your hawking radiation of humor, simultaneously informing and evaporating your productivity. You're tuned into the Multiverse Employee Handbook, the only podcast that treats your career trajectory like a closed time-like curve through an endless PowerPoint presentation. In our last episode, we navigated the treacherous waters of multiversal bankruptcy, where we learned that Chapter 11 is less a financial strategy and more a quantum state of fiscal uncertainty. We dodged interdimensional debt collectors and discovered that the best way to balance your cosmic books is to simply exist in a superposition of solvency and insolvency until observed by an auditor. But today, dear listeners, we're venturing into even more paradoxical territory. We're diving headfirst into the world of M-theory and meetings about meetings. Brace yourselves for a collision between string theory and corporate culture that'll make the Large Hadron Collider look like a game of interdepartmental ping pong. Did you know that M-theory predicts the existence of 11 dimensions? Well, coincidentally, that's also the average number of pointless meetings you'll sit through this week.
Oh.
It's as if the universe itself is trying to tell us something about the fundamental nature of corporate time wasting. Perhaps those extra 7 dimensions are where all our productive hours disappear to. Or maybe they're just filled with an infinite number of middle managers, each armed with a laser pointer and a dream of synergizing our go-forward strategy. Now let us consult the sacred text of the Multiverse Employee Handbook. Please turn your quantum-entangled pages to Chapter 31, The Art of Quantum Presentations, Engaging All Possible Audiences Simultaneously. Ahem. In the beginning, there was the Word, and the Word was PowerPoint. And lo, the multiversal board of directors did declare, "Let there be slides." And there were slides, infinite in number and variation, existing simultaneously across all possible realities. Verily, the wise presenter must master the art of quantum superposition, for their audience exists in all states of consciousness, awake, asleep, and checking their interdimensional email. Speak thou to all versions of thy colleagues, from the most attentive to the one who is mentally composing their grocery list for a universe where pasta is a form of currency. Remember always the sacred law of quantum presentations. Thy slides must be both informative and contentless until observed, lest thy message collapse into a singularity of boredom, from whence no engagement can escape. Use thee the Heisenberg uncertainty font, that thy bullet points may be simultaneously precise and all-encompassing. And if thou find thyself presenting to a parallel version of thyself, take care not to create a paradox by being more eloquent than thyself. For verily, the multiverse frowns upon those who outpresent themselves, and thy stock options may suffer across infinite realities. Well, my probability-defying participants, it seems we have our work cut out for us. Who knew that giving a simple presentation could be more complex than solving the information paradox at a black hole's event horizon? But fear not, for in the grand amphitheater of the multiverse, every audience member is simultaneously nodding in sage understanding and nodding off to sleep. It's simply a matter of collapsing the wave function to your advantage. Stay tuned as we next explore the parable of the Perpetual Meeting, a cautionary tale of corporate time dilation gone horribly, hilariously wrong. Remember, in the multiverse of business, it's not about how long your meeting runs, but in how many dimensions you can run it simultaneously. Gather round my chronosynclastic infundibulum of colleagues for the tale of the Perpetual Meeting, a cautionary fable that would make even the Time Lords of Gallifrey check their watches and mutter, Blimey, this is dragging on a bit. In the gleaming non-Euclidean office complex of Mobius Strip Mining Corp., there was a conference room known only as Meeting Room Omega. Legend had it that this room existed in a state of quantum superposition, simultaneously occupied and vacant, productive and utterly pointless. It was here that Brad the Innovator Pumblechook, Vice President of Temporal Synergy Solutions, decided to hold what he called the ultimate brainstorming session. Brad was the kind of manager who used synergy as punctuation and considered thinking outside the box to be literal instructions for interdimensional problem solving. "Team," Brad announced to his assembled colleagues, and their infinite alternate selves attending via quantum entanglement. "We're not leaving this room until we've revolutionized our paradigm across all possible realities." Little did Brad know his choice of words would have consequences more far-reaching than a Vogan constructor fleet with a budget surplus. As the meeting dragged on, strange things began to happen. First, the clock on the wall started spinning backwards, then sideways, then in directions that shouldn't exist in our reality. The whiteboard became a window into parallel universes, each one showing a slightly different version of their meeting, ranging from mildly productive to monkeys with typewriters levels of chaos. "Great progress, team!" Brad exclaimed, oblivious to the space-time anomalies erupting around him. "Let's table that idea and circle back after we've ideated on our forward-thinking strategy for optimizing our optimization strategies." With each buzzword, with each circular discussion, with each pointless action item added to the interdimensional minutes, new universes spawned into existence. There was the universe where everyone spoke exclusively in corporate jargon, rendering all communication meaningless yet oddly familiar. Another where every decision was made by a magic 8-ball, leading to surprisingly effective results and a 2,000% increase in stock price. Meanwhile, in our original universe, the meeting attendees found themselves trapped in a temporal loop, doomed to rehash the same talking points for eternity. Tom from accounting had suggested they all take a quick break 6 hours, or possibly 6 years ago. But in the paradoxical timescape of Meeting Room Omega, concepts like break time and going home had become as abstract as the company's ethical guidelines. As the meeting stretched across eons, civilizations rose and fell in the outside world, empires crumbled, stars went supernova, and still Brad pressed on with his PowerPoint presentation, each slide creating new layers of reality, like some cosmic phyllo pastry of productivity. It was Zara from IT who finally broke the cycle. In a moment of clarity that cut through the quantum fog of indecision, she stood up and said, "I motion that we adjourn this meeting and reconvene when we've had time to process our action items." The universe held its breath. Brad, caught off guard by this sudden outbreak of common sense, blinked in confusion. But we haven't finished optimizing our—" "All in favor?" Zara pressed on, her voice echoing across dimensions. A chorus of "Ayes" rang out, rippling through the multiverse like a shock wave of relief. Reality itself seemed to sigh as the motion passed unanimously across infinite realities. As the attendees filed out of Meeting Room Omega, they found that mere minutes had passed in the outside world, yet each of them had aged decades, their hair grayed not by time, but by exposure to pure, unfiltered corporate absurdity. Brad, still clutching his laser pointer like a talisman, was left alone in the conference room, muttering about synergy and paradigm shifts. Some say that if you listen closely, you can still hear him in there, eternally rehearsing his presentation to an audience of quantum ghosts. And so, dear listeners, we learn the most important lesson of interdimensional corporate culture. Be careful what you're meeting for. You just might get it. In the grand scheme of the multiverse, every pointless meeting spawns an infinite number of equally pointless parallel meetings. It's enough to make you want to call in sick across all possible realities. Remember, The next time you find yourself in a meeting that seems to be stretching into infinity, ask yourself, is it the meeting that's never ending? Or have you simply become trapped in the corporate version of Zeno's paradox, forever approaching productivity without ever reaching it? And if you find yourself discussing synergy for the umpteenth time, just hope that somewhere, in some reality, there's a version of you playing interdimensional hooky. Stay tuned as we next delve into the mind-bending parallels between M-theory and your company's org chart. Spoiler alert, both are equally incomprehensible and probably held together by vibrating cosmic strings of pure bureaucratic energy. All right, my multi-dimensional middle managers, strap in and prepare to have your minds expanded faster than the universe during cosmic inflation. We're about to explore the mind-bending parallels between M-theory and your average Tuesday morning status update. First, a quick primer on M-theory for those of you who skipped advanced theoretical physics in favor of creative accounting 101. M-theory, first proposed by Edward Witten in 1995, is the hypothetical theory of everything that attempts to unify all consistent versions of superstring theory. It proposes that the universe actually consists of 11 dimensions. That's right, 11. As if the 3 spatial dimensions and 1 time dimension that Hermann Minkowski formalized in 1908 weren't enough to get lost in on your way to the interdimensional water cooler.
Wait, what?
Now you might be thinking, 11 dimensions? That sounds more complicated than our company's vacation request form. And you'd be right. But here's where it gets interesting. These extra dimensions aren't just mathematical abstractions. They're more like the hidden levels in the cosmic video game of reality, reminiscent of Kaluza and Klein's 1921 attempt to unify gravity with electromagnetism by introducing a 5th dimension. But how does this relate to corporate culture, I hear you ask? And yes, I can hear you asking. In at least one of these 11 dimensions, I have super hearing that would make Superman jealous. Well, let's break it down. 1. Just as M-theory suggests that tiny vibrating strings are the fundamental building blocks of the universe, your corporate structure is held together by vibrating strings of emails, memos, and passive-aggressive sticky notes. It's like Gabriele Veneziano's 1968 insight about the dual resonance model, but with more Comic Sans. 2. The extra dimensions in M-theory are often described as curled up or compactified, as proposed by Oscar Klein in 1926. Similarly, your company's true power structure is curled up and hidden from view, visible only to those who've achieved HR enlightenment. 3. M-theory attempts to unify different string theories, much like how your company's mission statement attempts to unify different departments under a single incomprehensible goal. It's the corporate equivalent of the work done by Michael Green and John Schwartz in 1984 to cancel out anomalies in string theory. But let's go deeper, shall we? Consider the humble action item. In traditional corporate theory, an action item is simply a task to be completed. But in our M-theory corporate model, action items are actually vibrating cosmic strings, resonating across all 11 dimensions of your company. When Brad from marketing says he'll circle back on something, he's not just postponing a task. He's actually creating a closed time-like curve in the fabric of corporate space-time, ensuring that the task will eternally be about to be done without ever actually reaching completion. It's like Kurt Gödel's 1949 solution to Einstein's field equations, but with more missed deadlines. And what about that coworker who always derails the agenda? In our new model, they're not just annoying, they're a transdimensional being attempting to collapse our reality. Their seemingly random tangents are actually probing the weak points in our dimensional brains, threatening to tear open a hole in the agenda and plunge the entire meeting into a parallel universe where nothing ever gets accomplished. In other words, an average Wednesday. It's like Lisa Randall and Raman Sundaram's 1999 work on warped geometry, but with more coffee breaks. Now, let's ponder the philosophical implications of decisions spawning new universes in meetings. Every time a decision is made in a corporate meeting, it creates a branching timeline, spawning a new universe. This is reminiscent of Hugh Everett III's many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, proposed in 1957. In one universe, the decision is implemented successfully. In another, it fails spectacularly. And in a third, everyone forgot about it immediately and went for early lunch. This means that every time someone says, "Let's table that for now," they're not just postponing a decision, they're actively preventing the birth of infinite new universes. That's right. Corporate indecisiveness is the only thing standing between us and the total collapse of the multiverse under the weight of infinite, meeting-spawned realities. It's like Max Tegmark's 2003 proposal of a mathematical multiverse, but with more bureaucracy. So, the next time you're sitting in a meeting, watching your colleague create a PowerPoint slide with so many bullet points it looks like an ASCII art rendition of static, remember, you're not just wasting time. You're participating in the fundamental cosmic dance of creation and destruction, playing out across dimensions beyond human comprehension. It's like Edward Witten's 1995 M-theory seminar, but with more donuts and less mathematical rigor.
Oh, really?
And when your boss asks why you haven't completed your assigned action items, simply explain that according to Werner Heisenberg's 1927 uncertainty principle of quantum task management, the mere act of observing your progress has changed the outcome. Your tasks exist in a superposition of completed and not completed states, and by asking for a status update, they've collapsed the wave function to the not done yet state. It's not procrastination, it's physics. Remember, in the grand universal computer simulation of corporate existence, we're all just subroutines in a cosmic code beyond our understanding, much like Stephen Wolfram's 2002 idea of a computational universe. So, the next time you're tempted to doze off during a particularly dull presentation, take comfort in the fact that in at least one of the 11 dimensions, you're probably running the whole company. And in another, you're a sentient stapler. The multiverse is weird like that. Stay tuned as we next explore the quantum mechanics of meeting dynamics. Learn why your project timeline is simultaneously ahead of schedule and hopelessly delayed, and why Erwin Schrödinger's 1935 thought experiment cat is both the most and least productive member of your team. Welcome back, my quantum-entangled quorum. It's time to delve into the bizarre world of quantum meeting dynamics, where project deadlines exist in a superposition of due yesterday and not in a million years. And your team leader is simultaneously competent and utterly clueless until observed. First, let's talk about the quantum superposition of project deadlines. You know how in Star Wars, the Millennium Falcon can make the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs? Well, aside from the fact that parsecs are a unit of distance, not time. Oh, George Lucas, you delightful scientific illiterate. Your project timeline is a lot like that. It exists in a state of quantum uncertainty, simultaneously ahead of schedule and hopelessly delayed, until some poor soul dares to ask for a status update. But wait, there's more! Let me introduce you to the concept of Schrödinger's team leader. This is the quantum state in which your boss exists in a superposition of micromanaging tyrant and absentee figurehead until the moment you need approval for something. At that precise instant, the wave function collapses, and they invariably materialize as whichever version is least helpful to your current situation. It's like that moment in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, when the infinite improbability drive kicks in, but instead of turning missiles into a sperm whale and a bowl of petunias, it turns your competent manager into a potted plant with decision-making authority. Now, for those brave souls venturing into these quantum meeting spaces, I offer these humorous tips. 1. Always bring a towel. Not because it's the most massively useful thing an interstellar hitchhiker can have, but because quantum fluctuations in the meeting room's air conditioning can cause sudden localized ice ages or tropical heat waves. 2. If you find yourself in a meeting that seems to be stretching into infinity, check if you've accidentally wandered into a time dilation field. Unlike the conveniently slowed down time in Christopher Nolan's Interstellar, this field only affects your perception of the meeting's length, while the outside world moves on without you. 3. When presenting, remember that your audience exists in a superposition of all possible states of attention. They are simultaneously hanging on your every word and mentally composing their grocery lists. Design your slides to appeal to all possible versions of your colleagues, including the one who's actually a hyper-intelligent shade of the color blue. 4. If you find yourself stuck in a logic loop during a meeting, do not attempt to resolve it by going back in time to give yourself the solution. Unlike in Back to the Future, this will not result in a cool hoverboard. It will, however, create a temporal paradox that could unravel the fabric of corporate space-time and potentially erase the coffee machine from existence. 5. Finally, always be prepared for spontaneous reality shifts. One moment you might be discussing quarterly reports. The next you could find yourself in a parallel universe where PowerPoint presentations are delivered via interpretive dance, and the company is run by a hyper-intelligent hive mind of sentient staplers. Remember, in the quantum realm of corporate meetings, the only constant is change, and the only certainty is uncertainty. It's less like the Force from Star Wars, which apparently can be channeled by microscopic organisms in your bloodstream. Midi-chlorians, really, Lucas. And more like trying to nail jelly to a wall, while the wall keeps phasing in and out of existence. So, the next time you find yourself lost in the quantum foam of a particularly mind-bending meeting, just take a deep breath and remember, in at least one universe, you're the all-powerful CEO. In another, you're the office ficus. And in the vast majority, you're probably still sitting in this meeting, wondering when it will end. May the quantum odds be ever in your favor. So, the next time you find yourself lost in the quantum foam of a particularly mind-bending meeting, just take a deep breath and remember, in at least one universe, you're the all-powerful CEO. In another, you're the office ficus. And in the vast majority, you're probably still sitting in this meeting, wondering when it will end. May the quantum odds be ever in your favor. Gather round the quantum water cooler, my interdimensional interlocutors. It's time for a crash course in the finer points of multiversal meeting manners. After all, you never know when you might find yourself in a conference room that doubles as a portal to parallel realities. First, let's address some absurd scenarios you might encounter in cross-dimensional meetings. Picture this. You're giving a presentation when suddenly a version of you from Universe X137 pops in to argue that your data is flawed because in their reality, gravity repels instead of attracts. Or imagine trying to schedule a meeting with yourself from a universe where time runs backwards. Do you set the meeting for yesterday or tomorrow? And let's not forget the awkward moment when you realize your alternate self from the evil goatee universe has been subtly undermining your ideas the entire time. Now, for some tips on communicating with your alternate selves in meetings. Always use I statements, but be specific about which I you're referring to. I think this is a bad idea becomes I from the universe, where coffee is a form of currency, thinks this is a bad idea. Avoid making eye contact with too many of your alternate selves simultaneously. This can create a feedback loop of self-awareness that may cause an existential crisis mid-meeting. If you find yourself disagreeing with, well, yourself, try to remember that you're both right, somewhere in the multiverse. Practice saying, I respectfully disagree with myself, but I also completely agree with my other self. When brainstorming, remember that every idea has already been proposed by one of your alternate selves in another universe. This takes the pressure off, but also means you can't take credit for anything. Win some, lose some. Lastly, let's tackle the thorny issue of how to politely excuse yourself from a meeting in one universe without offending yourself in another. This requires finesse, tact, and possibly a small, localized temporal paradox. Try this. Stand up and announce, I regret that I must leave this meeting early, as I have an urgent appointment with myself in Universe Y42. However, I assure you that in at least 3 other realities, I am staying until the bitter end. Additionally, in Universe Z99, I'm the one giving this entire presentation, so technically, I'm not leaving at all. If that fails, you can always attempt the quantum bathroom break. Simply state that you exist in a superposition of leaving and staying until someone observes the empty chair, thus collapsing the wave function of your attendance. Remember, in the multiverse of meetings, you're always arriving late, leaving early, and sitting through the entire thing simultaneously. It's all a matter of which reality you choose to observe. And if all else fails, you can always blame any faux pas on your evil twin from the parallel universe. Just make sure you have the goatee to prove it. So the next time you find yourself in a meeting that transcends the boundaries of space, time, and common sense, just take a deep breath and remember, somewhere out there, there's a version of you who's already successfully navigated this interdimensional corporate minefield, and another version who's hopelessly lost in the space between realities. You're somewhere in the middle, and that's perfectly okay. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a meeting with myself from a universe where this podcast never existed. I'm both looking forward to it and dreading it intensely. Such is the nature of interdimensional water cooler talk. Well, my quantum-curious colleagues, we've reached the end of our journey through the mind-bending world of M-theory and meetings about meetings. Let's recap what we've learned, shall we? We've discovered that every pointless meeting spawns an infinite number of equally pointless parallel meetings, making your average Tuesday potentially responsible for more universal creation than the Big Bang itself. We've explored the strange parallels between string theory and corporate structure, realizing that both are held together by vibrating strands of pure confusion. And we've mastered the art of quantum meeting etiquette, learning how to be in 2 places at once without violating the laws of physics or HR guidelines. Remember, in the multiverse of corporate culture, every decision you make, or don't make, creates a new universe. So the next time you're tempted to say, let's circle back on that, just remember, you're not procrastinating. You're preserving the delicate fabric of space-time itself. Now, to answer the burning question, if a meeting happens in a parallel universe and no one takes minutes, does it make a sound? Well, according to the interdimensional bureaucracy principle, it not only makes a sound, but it also generates paperwork across infinite realities. The minutes may not exist in our universe, but rest assured, somewhere out there, a version of you is drowning in documentation. And now, dear listeners, prepare yourselves for our next episode, the Multiversal Office Party. Just in time for Halloween, we'll be exploring the spooky, spectacular, and downright surreal world of celebrating across the cosmos. Ever wondered what happens when you mix antimatter punch with regular matter partygoers? Curious about the logistics of bobbing for apples in zero gravity? Want to know how to avoid a faux pas when your alternate self from the zombie universe tries to eat your brains instead of shaking hands? We'll delve into all this and more. Learn why costume parties become exponentially more complicated when shapeshifters from human resources get involved. Discover the challenges of planning a seating chart when some of your colleagues exist in non-Euclidean space. And find out why the phrase, "dance like no one's watching," takes on a whole new meaning when quantum observers can collapse your wave function of sweet moves into embarrassing reality at any moment. Plus, we'll explore the ultimate party foul, accidentally creating a temporal paradox on the dance floor that erases the entire company from existence. Talk about a Monday morning hangover. So tune in next time for the Multiversal Office Party. Remember, in the cosmos of corporate celebrations, you're always fashionably early, unfashionably late, and right on time. Simultaneously. Until then, this is your host, existing in a superposition of wrapping up this episode and starting the next one. May all your meetings be brief, your decisions spawn only beneficial parallel universes, and your interdimensional office parties be out of this world. Literally.
Hello, this is Michael calling from Burlington, Vermont. The Multiverse Employee Handbook was created by Rob Corrigan, is edited by Matt Parkman, and narrated by David from 11 Labs. All science fact-checking is done by Mahinder Suresh. The Employee Handbook staff includes Claire Bennett, Hiro Nakamura, and Elle Bishop. Please be sure to subscribe to get updates on all new episodes.